Folks, thanks for tuning in on a Monday morning. Get your week started here with some information that's going to be amazing to you, I think. And thanks again for the feedback, people sending me inside intel behind the scenes to give you a sense of what's going on. And you already know what's going on. This just gives you a little bit of an edge on those who are only watching the mainstream media. Had a great weekend attending a number of events, a fundraising event up in Edmonton, Alberta, for the Edmonton Christian School organization down in Vancouver. Before that, next week will be in Oklahoma, but every day we're coming straight to you here. So let's jump right into it. The Trump Project Freedom is the latest announcement by the U.S. in terms of their determination to keep the Straits of Hormuz open. And the Iranians put out their publicized statement. This is Abraham Aziz, who's head of their national parliament, so-called, even though they don't really have a democracy of sorts. And he says that on behalf of Iran, he says that any kind of involvement of keeping the straits open by the U.S. is going to be seen as a violation. So not a whole lot of positive news coming out of Iran in terms of are they getting the lesson or not. It's also been determined they are indeed mining the strait itself, and I'm talking about putting in mines that blow up ships and people here. CENTCOM, you're going to hear that more and more. That's the Central Command of the U.S. has announced there's up to 15,000 troops moving into the area. So it's going to be interesting because Trump has said there's going to be no boots on the ground, but it sounds like they're going to be very active in terms of intercepting any kind of disruption there coming from the Iranians. I find it fascinating that in years past, anytime there was any mention of people putting mines anywhere, be it in the water or on land, it was always decried by the United Nations. The United Nations would vigorously go after any nation using mines to blow people up and to blow things up. And their UN is virtually silent on this particular issue. It's an open international waterway being mined by the Islamist Iranians, and silence coming from the United Nations is a little strange on that one. Remember, a quarter of the world's trade flows through the Strait of Hormuz, so that's going to be a lot of people watching that very closely to see what is in fact going to be happening. Well, a rapid change of tone. Remember, you heard it first here. Last week, we were talking about the Chancellor of Germany, the head of Germany, Friedrich Merz, and he was coming out pretty strongly against what the U.S. is doing and saying there's no way that the EU or NATO is going to have anything to do with helping out. And now he's coming out just today saying he's actually supportive. So somebody gave him a phone call or somebody turned the lights on, because it's been surprising to people around the world that the EU, that has always relied on the United States and Canada to a degree, depending what war we're talking about, and now not willing to help keep world trade open, and a turnaround there by the German Chancellor giving support. And he's saying there is no way Iran should be able at any time to get nuclear weapons. So not sure what happened over the weekend, but it seems like Germany, maybe other parts of the European Union, seeing the light right there. And now 7 out of 7 more of the OPEC nations. Remember, I was keeping you updated on the fact that the UAE, the United Arab Emirates, as one of the nations forming what's called OPEC, that's the oil-producing economies, and there's about 13 countries there, and UAE breaking out of that, saying that they'll sell oil however way they want to, which means more oil coming on the market, so less of an effect of Iran trying to block the oil coming through. And now 7 more countries are going to say that, I'm saying now they are going to increase their oil production. One of those countries is Saudi Arabia. So that is also going to mean more oil out on the market, which means slightly lower prices despite what's going on right now with the Iranian situation. Lebanon is continuing to say that they are going to try and going to keep trying to work with Israel in terms of Israel taking out the Hezbollah terrorist sites and terrorist firing locations and tunnels that are in Lebanon. Remember, Hezbollah, financed by Iran, by the radical Islamist terrorists. And so Lebanon stepping it up there. And people are wondering this is good news in terms of oil prices. We'll see how long it takes for prices to come down. But one of the ways you can project when you hear about companies buying stock and on the futures market, that's basically mean companies are saying, we think in the future, 3 months ahead or 6 months ahead, 9 months ahead, this is where the price of a particular commodity will be. And so they will project that and buy at that price. And the futures market for oil, for the huge organizations around the world that purchase oil, they are projecting the 3 month, the 6 month, and the 9 month, all at lower prices than today. So long term, looking like there's going to be things coming down despite what Iran is doing. We're going to have to wait and see what happens there. In terms of inside the United States itself, and to a degree Canada, you'll remember it wasn't that long ago, it was just last year, that under pressure, people were saying under pressure from the Trump from the Trump White House, that Columbia University was housing and having professors who were distinctly anti-American and encouraging violence and encouraging students to be violent. And media at the time were saying, oh no, that's just the White House saying that because they're down on some of these universities. Well, one of the professors that was fired at that time, a guy by the name of Mohammed Abdu, and he was fired as a professor because it was saying that what he was teaching and sharing with the students there was violent rhetoric. And people were saying, no, he's actually not that bad a guy. Well, now he's out there doing a tour in the United States, and it's called the Death to Academy Tour. It's his Death to Academy Tour. He is encouraging students. He says, if you are thinking of being violent and doing violent things, you are on the right path. You are he's saying this to American students, you are part of the Islamic Jihad, and very, very strong in terms of encouraging students to violence. So it's going to be interesting to see how long he'll be able to keep doing that. Some of this obviously falls under inciting to hate and inciting to violence. We'll see how long that goes on. The situation, you'll recall, with the Pope and President Trump having a bit of an open debate. Looks like steps are being taken to try and calm that down a little. We see Secretary of State Rubio meeting with the Pope and seeing if they can't kind of moderate the language a little bit. Talking about shipping, and this has nothing to do with the Iran-Hormuz, Strait of Hormuz situation, but a very alarming report coming out of one of the cruise ship industry. This is the cruise line Ocean-Wide Expeditions, one of their large ships. 3 people reported to have died on that ship from the hantavirus. This is a virus that is mainly transported by rats, and kind of a disturbing item there. We hope that this is not widespread, and I hope that they get a handle on it, but just giving a heads up that might be a breaking story here. The Gallup polls have been surveying people who are intending to leave their countries to immigrate to other countries, and they do this annually to see who's the top country, what's the top country of choice for people who want to move from other parts of the world. It continues to be the United States, top country of choice, but it has dropped. It was 24% of migrants wanting to get into the United States. Now it's dropped to 15%. So that's the single biggest share of on when they interview and do the surveys of migrants worldwide, but it has dropped. So it seems that the border controls and it seems that the increased pressure on illegal immigrations is having some effect. U.S. still number one choice, but less people wanting to get in there. Canada, by the way, on that poll where it's 15% of all migrants wanting to get into the U.S. is 9% wanting to get into Canada. So Canada not still as popular as the U.S. for people wanting to move there. Well, I want to take a quick look. We like to talk about what's happening and different let's say, signals from different areas, different cities in terms of impact on the culture. So a tale of two cities here. Los Angeles, first of all, one of their city councils proposing a motion that people who are not citizens are going to be allowed to vote in the elections in LA. That's pretty big stuff. It's always you've had to be a citizen, and they're proposing that his vote will go forward in November. That'll radically change things because there are, of course, millions of illegal immigrants in Los Angeles, and this would empower them to vote. So the Democrats see this as a real plus for them because illegal immigrants who don't want to have to leave the country will definitely favor Democrats who don't mind the fact that illegal immigrants stream over the border. So we'll see what's happening there. And then flip on that to New York City. Very recent a situation, if you want to call it that, coming out where we see reports coming out of the Catholic Church in New York City saying very significant numbers, especially of young people returning to church, returning to Mass. St. Joseph's Cathedral in the East Village itself, reporting that they're just saying they're using words packed out services, mainly Gen Z and millennials returning to church. We'll see what that means, but it's definitely something that is significantly measurable. Well, iPaper magazine is talking about the fact that people are speculating Ivanka Trump may be throwing the proverbial hat in the ring for the presidential race that will be coming up the next round in 3 years. And speculation there. She's saying no, but more and more people are speculating on it. She, remember, is the wife of Jared Kushner, and a lot of speculation there. Is she going to make her move or not? In the UK, among a number of newspapers, the Telegram UK and other newspapers reporting that Prime Minister Carney showing up at the EU summit in Yerevan. This is the first time they say that a non-EU country has had a representative to attend this large political meeting of EU countries, and that he is sending a signal that Canada may be playing with the fact of becoming a member of the European Union. That he never took that to the people for an election choice. My guess is Canadians would be kind of open to that discussion. I don't think that would be that wise geopolitically, as we see the federal Liberals pushing Canada into closer ties with China, and now potentially becoming closer ties with the European Union at the very least. And I can tell you, as former Minister of Public Safety, responsible for coordination with intelligence services around the world, whether it's to do with terrorism or the illegal drug trade, there will be real caution from the U.S. in terms of sharing information, high-level intel with Canada, as Canada continues to take this move away from the U.S. Well, here's a little viral thing that's going on. It sounds a little crazy, but have you heard of speed running? Speed running is where in a local area, maybe a city, all of a sudden by certain streaming platforms, and especially Gen Z getting into this, the word will go out for everybody to show up and try and enter the facilities of a certain place. And the Church of Scientology is sort of the target, has been in Vancouver. And it also just happened in LA, where all of a sudden hundreds of people show up and flood into the facility. Now, these are facilities which normally would, of course, this be a worship-related facility, which would like the fact that people are coming in. But when it comes in as a swarm mob, or as they call it, speed running, is creating lots of problems. People were arrested. There was damage being done. And everybody kind of watching to see if this so-called speed running, it's happening in different locations, is going to become a trend. Well, I'll tell you what is running. Canadians were getting kind of depressed as one after another, their teams are getting eliminated from the Stanley Cup finals. The Montreal Canadiens defeated the Lightning and are going on to Buffalo. Now, the reason that that's going to be interesting, as I posted last week, many Canadian fans right across the river from Buffalo are huge fans of Buffalo and are upset with the Canadian government taking this anti-U.S. stance. Most people, and I think I see it the same way, I don't agree with tariffs. I don't agree with that U.S. trade policy, but taking it out on making individual Americans or American citizens the enemy and taking out our anger on them always seemed to be a little strange to me. And the Canadian fans right across from Buffalo, huge fans of the Buffalo Sabres, flooding into their rinks there. And now we got the Montreal Canadiens coming to Buffalo. Let's keep an eye on that. Going to be interesting to see what they do. By the way, for those of you who are fans of the former star of the Toronto Maple Leafs and the captain, this of course be many years ago, Matt Sundin. Matt Sundin has been hired as an expert advisor to the Maple Leafs because this is the, well, they've been having a terrible season, of course. This is the first time since 2016 not making it to this level in the playoffs. They're firing some of their key staff, bringing in Matt Sundin. Matt Sundin, remember, has been, he was a former captain of the Toronto Maple Leafs and actually their top all-time scorer, being brought in as senior advisor. Had the opportunity to meet with him once. I was on a flight from Europe into Canada, and this guy sitting beside me with his ball cap pulled down over his eyes, and he had a terrible cold, and he was trying to get some sleep. I started talking with him a bit and asked him if he did any work around, does he work in Canada or does he work in Europe? And he said, well, at that time, kind of in Canada. And I said, well, what do you do there? And he said, well, I play hockey. And then I realized I was talking to Matt Sundin, had a great chat with him. He's coming back to Toronto. Interesting thing about Sundin, a lot of people don't realize, may not remember, he chose to wear number 13. So kind of throwing that out there. He was always saying he didn't believe, he wasn't superstitious. And the number seemed to work for him. So we're going to see if number 13 that works with him coming back now. Well, also in Toronto, on not good news on the cultural front, another attack on Jewish men and women in the Jewish quarters in the Jewish part of the city. And this time, it's kind of scary because it was a drive-by shooting, but a shooting using guns that you would see like in these, that people take out, and they have these pellet wars. And people were hit. The objects that they fire, the type of gun that was used, it's not lethal, but there were injuries, and this is following up attacks on the synagogues in Toronto and on the other places in the Jewish community. Very serious stuff, and the Jewish community in Toronto quite rightly saying there's got to be a lot more focus, a lot more police protection and denunciation and capturing these individuals who are doing this. Well, also under attack in a different way in Alberta, the Minister of the Environment, Minister Hunter, very upset that the federal government, you'll recall, and we talked about this last week, has launched its huge initiative called 30/30, meaning 30% of all land by 2030 will be controlled by the federal government in terms of not allowing any development on that, just a sweeping statement following a UN initiative in this regard. And Alberta saying 60% of all Alberta land already is very strictly monitored on the same guidelines that the UN would have. And Alberta not happy that the federal government seems to be just swooping in, and they going to be declaring, the feds declaring what land can be worked on and what can be developed. Not a good time for the feds to be doing this when there's already this separatist urge and impulse in Alberta. We'll see where that goes. Very interesting to see in terms of government and making, sweeping changes and controlling everything. You'll be familiar, a lot of you, with the book Animal Farm. Animal Farm was written way back in 1945, and it was a parody of sorts. It was a story, for those of you who are unfamiliar with it, even though it's a very famous book, written by George Orwell, a story about how a farm was being operated by really nasty, mean farmers and Farmer Jones, and how they exploited all the animals. And the animals finally, because they thought everybody should be equal, the animals throw out the farmers. And it was, so when you start reading the book, you think, well, this is good. They threw out the bad guys. And it was a reflection on communism where the owners were all thrown out and, quote, the people took over. And of course, over a period of time, it didn't take long for the animals to turn into the bad ones and really nasty ones, the pigs especially. Uh, Famously, you'll remember lines, if you didn't read the book itself, famous lines like, all animals are created equal, just some are more equal than others. And so it was showing at the time, with the Soviet Union expanding, it was a warning to the rest of the world that the People's Revolution, so called, the people turned into worse monsters than the farmers. Well, Hollywood has come out with their version of Animal Farm, and it is an animated version, and they've got some big names. You got Seth Rogen in there, and you got Woody Harrelson as some of the voices. But they've added something. Hollywood, of course, always being left leaning, and the ultimate, really, the ultimate irony that the some of the richest people in the world enjoying all of the riches and the benefits of capitalism, being saying they're against capitalism and wanting to promote socialism. I guess it's equal, but they are more equal than others, the Hollywood types. And what they've done is they've really changed it. They've added a character to Animal Farm. They've added a pig called Lucky, Lucky the pig. He kind of takes over stuff. And instead of showing that this is the takeover by the communists is terrible and evil, after they throw out the farmers, Lucky the pig sort of comes to his senses and says, "Oh, we're just being as nasty as the farmers were," and they sell the farm and they take the proceeds and they build an energy-free electric project. And Lucky the pig apologizes to everybody for the regime turning all greedy, etc. So. Very interesting how Hollywood will unashamedly. It's fine to attack and do different things and have different points of view, but now young people watching Animal Farm will be getting a very distinctly different ending to it. Not the ending that George Orwell had intended, which was to show that this intense level of socialism and communism leads to everybody becoming poor. So a little switch up there going on. Susie Weiss, if you read her, I've recommended her columns to you. Very interesting column. If you're not familiar with Hassan Piker, this is kind of the new, I'm going to say, poster boy, dream child for the left, for the Democrats, for the socialists. Extreme. He is has been a self-professed communist, and he's really reflecting what so many of the Gen Z are unfortunately reflecting, and that's a new approach to things that we always used to think were wrong. For instance, in this interview, in which he's being interviewed by a reporter from the New Yorker, Hassan Piker he talks about, there's new terms coming out there like micro looting. So this is when you're not stealing really, really big stuff, and he doesn't even call it looting. He calls it taking without paying. Taking without paying. And what is being promoted here is the thought that if you're stealing from a big organization, even if it's like a grocery store like Whole Foods, that's actually okay, because grocery stores are, of course, and big stores are controlled by, just greedy people. They ignore the fact that thousands of people might be invested in these various stores and organizations through their own pensions funds. However, micro looting is actually okay, and he calls it petty theft, and that's really been catching on. Hassan Piker even suggesting that murders, if you remember the murder by Luigi Mangione of the head of a healthcare insurance company who was shot in the back walking down the street by Luigi Mangione. He's saying, maybe suggesting that that's justified because obviously those big health insurance companies are mean, nasty corporations, and they're out killing people. So almost suggesting it's okay to kill them back, and understanding that, folks, this is something that we need to be thinking about. If we got an entire generation thinking it's right and it's okay to be stealing, looting, speed running, invading, and even suggesting sympathy for some of these murderers, would suggest that we're into a bit of a touchy time right here. The reporter by the name of Tolentino in that particular article even raised the example of, there was some of you remember in Canada the burning down of the Kimberly-Clark warehouse, and it was done by a person, as it turned out, who just thought Kimberly-Clark wasn't paying high enough wages. And again, this thought is very dangerous thought coming in, that if it's a capitalist or if it's a wealthy person, in fact, maybe it is kind of okay to perform these particular crimes. And very interesting even suggesting that it's all right as long as the company itself is, like making a lot of money. And Hassan Piker suggesting maybe we should get back to the good old glorious crimes like bank robbing. Very dangerous stuff, and it's on the left, and uh, these individuals are supported in the U.S. certainly by the Democrat Party and by leftists in Canada. So very concerning to see this. Well, in terms of people having a change of mind, if you know who Perez Hilton is, Perez Hilton actually started out as a young person, very successful on the internet. Had a posting, had a platform known as Page Six, and then developed into PerezHilton.com, became very, very wealthy, multimillionaire, and recently wound up in the hospital in really a life-threatening situation. So regardless of his politics, that was a concern. And he claims to have been miraculously healed and is sort of returned or reflecting with a life drawing closer to God, reading the Bible. He still says that same-sex marriage, in his view, he thinks God blesses that, and that's okay. But professing to have quite a remarkable turnaround experience. So we'll see where that particular aspect goes. So we're hearing both sides of this argument in terms of people coming to faith. And some say the Bible says same-sex relationships are okay, and some say they're not. Not quite as well known, but it's about a significant figure by the name of Becket Cook, very well known in Hollywood, a Hollywood set designer, recently came to faith and has moved away from the same-sex relationship, saying, no, it's actually not right. And so we're getting both sides of the equation being brought forward there. Let's see where it goes. I know when a while ago, about 3 years ago, I was working doing a job, advisory to a large organization in New York City, and I was attending a church in the village, actually in the East Village, a very, very popular church, and they had a group there that were people involved. They have recovery groups, and one of those recovery groups was people recovering from what they called same-sex relationships. And but there was another evangelical church just down the road from that saying that these relationships are okay. So watch for this to continue to develop as a debate in terms of what does the Bible actually say about this. And one word of caution, we need to keep these discussions away from the hate-filled rhetoric that unfortunately is largely coming from the left, not 100%, but from the left on these things. Folks, always good to look to the Bible and always good to be analyzing your faith. Best way to do it, call on God himself and ask for wisdom. Have a great day, folks. We'll talk to you tomorrow.